Hey guys, Table here. Today I gotta look at the Fletcher for it. It's a Tier 7 USN Destroyer. It's on the map north, and we got the north spawn in the domination mode game. So the Fletcher's an interesting ship. This is a stock game, so I got like an 11-point Burke on it, and then there weren't any upgrades on the ship at the time. I think the HP gets up to like 16,600, and the hull in general kind of increases. It increases more than you'd suspect, so in general, excepting maybe like IJN destroyers, I'd usually recommend going with the hull first. You don't always know what you're going to get, but it's usually quite beneficial to do so. And then I'd go with the torpedoes and then the range after that. But even stock, the ship's pretty capable. I feel like Tier 7 is a tier you really notice lack of upgrades on a ship. I feel like the difference between an upgraded Tier 7 and a stock Tier 7 is more noticeable than maybe a Tier 4, for instance, but maybe that's just because of the higher skill or higher level commanders and higher skill players, I suppose, and everything's just more kind of demanding on your play at higher tiers. Anyways, we got 3 destroyers per side. I'm going to push forward to scout B, potentially cap it. Doesn't appear that there's any destroyers contesting this position. I think they have at least 2 IJN destroyers on this team, so you got to keep that in mind playing the USN destroyers. You're in general going to be spotted before you spot the enemy destroyers in that case, so something to consider. Now this Iowa's sitting there sailing full broadside. I'm trying to spot him for my team. Starting to wonder what's going on. Why is nobody shooting him? We do have this Colorado behind us, so take a look at his guns just to see what's going on. He's pointing them at A, it looks like, so he's not covering his zone that he spawned in. I don't generally recommend that. Now he did get absolutely wrecked by this Iowa, with no return fire going back towards the Iowa. So I don't understand why players don't focus on what's in front of them in these domination mode games. In general, I would recommend just clearing out your zone or at least slowing down the enemy. But yeah, this Iowa's been spotted for a couple minutes now, and he was obviously not inclined to fire at him, so that ended up costing him big time. But because this center position seems fairly wide open in terms of lack of enemy ships here, I'm going to attempt to punish this Iowa if I can. I keep glancing in on him. I'm switching between the aim indicator for the torpedoes and then zooming in. I'm taking a look at his smokestacks. It looks to me like he's probably slowing down, probably intending a reverse. Most Iowa players only sail in reverse, so you can kind of figure it out. But then you might be asking, why did I fire the one in front of one salvo in front of him if I'm assuming he's going to be reversing? Well, I'm still hoping that this guy gets shot, and you see he does actually get some incoming fire there. Now, usually ships, when they get shot, they're going to change whatever they're doing, so he was slowing down. He was probably about to reverse, but it's just kind of, there's a lot of player psychology that, there's tendencies that players have, so because he was shot, I'm just assuming he was speeding up. Now it does look like he's pulling forward a little bit, and we're able to puncture his ship a few times with some of these torps. Now, if you're paying attention, when that incoming salvo did hit him, he was briefly on fire, so he damage conned that. I'm assuming I didn't notice that at the time, because this popping the smoke is not a good play in this instance. What you typically want to do is draw out the enemy battleship's damage control, so if you flood a ship as we did there, then typically they'll immediately heal that. Then if you're able to start 1, 2, or even more fires than that, that's long-term damage that's going to build over the course of roughly a minute that they can't really do anything about. So it's a very strong play to make. But what happened here, and again, I don't think I realized at the time, but I do now watching it, is he took that incoming salvo that I commented on. It did start a fire, he damage conned that, then I torpedoed him. So using that smoke because I had no one spotting him was a waste in general, but my thinking at the time was if I can quickly start a fire on his ship, that'll wither him down, and then perhaps I can take him out one-on-one at that point. But you know, the smokes are very valuable, especially on these USN destroyers, where that's kind of their strongest play, is to have a ship spotted by a teammate and then pop the smoke and then just pound them with the guns, which add up damage really quickly. But because the side was so low, and it looks like his flood just finally went out, but I'm assuming he probably damage conned it, because we actually, I think, start another fire here. But because he was so low and because the distance between our ships is so great, it's a hard shot to hit a destroyer at this distance. And I did want to remove this guy from the game. Obviously the Iowa is a very dangerous ship to every ship on your team, so we're able to do that. And then we did have the Scharnhorst pushing forward behind this rock here, so because our torps are loaded again, I'm going to attempt to close in on him and see if we can remove him from the game. But that's when making these plays, trying to draw out damage controls or reacting to them, you got to be paying attention to what your team does too. And it's especially valuable for any ship you're playing. If you notice that a ship's on fire briefly and then it magically goes out, then obviously they put the fire out. So that's when you want to start focusing on that ship. Switch to HE, hit them with torps, do whatever you can to hit that long-term sustained damage. Now the Scharnhorst, you see we did fire one at the indicator. Usually when people are coming around islands or they're engaging, they're going to make a hard turn anyways. This guy somewhat inexplicably kind of just continues to sail forward, and I actually hit him with the entire salvo, so he went from having a robust amount of health to basically no health in a short amount of time there. Now at this point in the game we do have a moment to evaluate it. We have B captured, we're about to capture A, down on points, down on ships, and I can assume nobody's in front of me between here and that C on that corridor, because I wasn't ever detected, I dropped detection when I killed the Scharnhorst despite firing the guns, so nobody should be sneaking up on me there. So they have all these undetected ships. We gotta just assume there's somewhere about halfway between B and then north of C. And we have a battleship, a Vanguard, and some other destroyer that I'm not sure what that is. They have two IJN destroyers, I believe a Benson and a King George. So I decide to sail towards C as kind of an insurance policy in case they capture B. And you can see they were briefly detected. Now, at the time I was thinking, well, maybe they're in front of me, so those IJNs are going to outspot me, but because we dropped it going around that island, that indicated that they're coming around the bend on the north side of that B island. So, you know, despite the thinking, well, if we capture C, that would kind of keep us able to continue to accrue points. I think once I knew for sure that they began coming around B and looking at our team's comp, this was probably a mistake continuing on with this plan. I mean, a battleship versus 3 destroyers, even if he has some support from a destroyer, is going to be a hard fight, and the destroyer is a significant amount behind him. So these are kind of the interesting strategy elements to the game. This game's kind of a blend of like a shooter, and then I'd say it weighs a lot more heavily on like strategy and, you know, strategic thinking and stuff like that. So interesting point in the game for me. Looking back at it, I think I would have changed my mind had I had another 10 seconds to evaluate it. But we're proceeding towards C here with my original plan. We do get detected coming around this bend, and up pops King George. Now that's a very dangerous ship for any destroyer, especially close range. HE salvos from King George. It is very solid damage, and then, you know, discounting the extremely high fire chance. Looks like there he fires an AP salvo though. And again, I pop another smoke here. This is another, I'd say it's a little less questionable than the one on the Iowa. Just because those secondaries can do some damage at this range to me, but the torps were going to hit him in short order. So that's a second smoke that you know, the first one I'd say was definitely a waste. This one was maybe not as much of a waste, but had we had the other one from previously, it wouldn't have mattered. But now we go from down 3 ships to 4 to down 2 to 1 in short order. So regardless of if I had any smokes at this point, I couldn't use them offensively because no one's going to spot for me. As soon as I deploy the smoke, obviously the enemy will drop off the screen. I could, however, use them to disengage from a close quarters gunfight. They have 2 IJN destroyers. They're both going to spot me first. So if they're paying attention, they should get first shot advantage on me. And eating a salvo before you can really return fire is a recipe for not having much success in these engagements. So what I'm hoping for at this point, I'm hoping that they kind of appear 1v1 and they're low health, and if that's the case, I could probably out-duel them by having a far superior gun system. They could potentially send a destroyer over to A, capture that, and then create distance. Because they're up on score, even if I was able to kill one, if they flipped A, I think they would have enough points coming in to probably win the game at that point. But you see here we are detected. Now they weren't quite ready to fire at me, but the Kagero is full health. Whatever's behind them, I don't even notice. I don't have a chance. So at this point, there's really not much I can do with not having any consumables left and being far lower health than these destroyers. So all in all, I thought that was a pretty good look at the Fletcher, though. It's a fun ship to play. Great gun systems, pretty good torpedo systems to complement it. So really fun destroyer if you're grinding the USN line. I think you'll be very happy with the Fletcher at the end of it. So if you did enjoy the video, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. A lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions, comments for me, leave them below. And we'll see y'all later. Alright, peace.